pretty straightforward. After we complete the third report, we may shift that around because Jill Sanders may not be here yet. You can ask if there's any questions you have on the agenda. Just to touch on some of the items to address, the memorandum of agreement at the end relates to the union and the district agreeing to not waive any objections or rights with regards to conducting pre-K using scope, and that's what the MOA is about. So, without that, I don't see Jill, so I'm going to move to Elizabeth, if you wouldn't mind starting it. Yeah. So Elizabeth Hine is going to give our district safety plan. This is done every year.
Good evening, ladies and gentlemen. Thanks for coming. Starting with the update of the district safety plan. Annually, the state requires that we review the district plan, post it on the website, public input, and then put it in front of the board, and the board votes on it. They approve it, we send it to the state. All of this started, to show you remember Columbine, made everyone very aware of active shooting and how safety is #1 in our schools. So this goes back that far, safe schools, then requiring the district safety plan. That plan is basically the umbrella to our 3 building safety plans, which are updated every year by the principals and their staff. Obviously, we can't share a building plan with the public. Some people might not want to see it. We'll see what we do in emergencies, what our drills are, we can't have it. The district plan is not that specific. But all 3 building plans go to the local fire department and the 6th precinct. And they get copies every year. I don't go too much into detail on Elizabeth's presentation, so I'll let Elizabeth take it away. Elizabeth?
All right, thank you, Mr. Brasdale. Thank you, Mr. Brasdale. Thank you for letting me be part of this when we first started writing the safety plan too. It's the gift that keeps on giving. Every year we have to update it, and every year we have to add more to it depending on what the state wants. So tonight is really just an update on the changes that have been put into the plan since last year. As Mr. Brasdale mentioned, we have to update it annually, and the mission of the district safety plan is to protect lives and property, respond to emergencies in a quick, efficient manner. Okay, as building principals, as the superintendent, we are under the understanding that an emergency can happen at any time. It can happen district-wide, it can happen in our buildings, and we are the first responders, basically, until outside organizations come to assist us. So the district plan coordinates with local emergency plans and uses community resources such as the fire department, the police department, the mental health services in our community. And we aid in recovery after disasters as part of the plan. This came about, as Mr. Brasdale said, after Columbine, all school districts were looking at safety. And SAVE legislation, Education Law 2801, Commissioner's regulations, and the operational plan in event of a health emergency are all the reasons why every year we have to have a plan in place both at the district level and at the building levels. As Mr. Brosdale said, the district plan is public-facing. This 19-page document is posted on the website for the public to review. Building safety plans are confidential and private. We have to develop a comprehensive plan that helps to reduce and prevent emergencies, respond to emergencies, and recover after emergencies. The public review period is after we update it in the summer. It's supposed to be posted on the website for at least 30 days. The board approves it, and then it gets sent to the state ed department and is approved for the year. That's not to say that we can't make changes that come about even after it's approved, but it would have to go back for approval. Every district is supposed to have a district safety team, and every building is supposed to have a building safety team to review and meet and revise things as situations develop. This is the SAVE legislation. These are the specifics that it outlines why we have to have a district safety plan. Some of the things on here, you'll see teachers or anybody going for an education certification now has to have 2-hour violence prevention training for certification. The last bullet talks about all the comprehensive pieces of our district-wide safety plan and what we need as a district. We need to have a code of conduct. We need to have a reporting of VADR incidences every year. We need to have school violence prevention training, which we sometimes schedule during superintendent conference days for teachers. Any employee needs to be fingerprinted and cleared at the state clearinghouse for employees. And we need to have, abuse and assaults on teachers and teacher discipline, all sorts of things. It's very comprehensive. The goals of the plan are to prevent emergencies and respond to them. We need sure that our students and staff are safe. That is our #1 priority, as Mr. Brosdale mentioned, and any visitors to the school. We need to restore operations and continue the education of children after an emergency. So the sooner we respond to emergency, the sooner we get the aftershocks over and we repair buildings or whatever needs to be done as far as mental health to the students and staff so we can continue our goal of educating children. The district-wide safety team is made up of various people, Mr. Brosdale, teachers, administrators, all the principals, sometimes social workers, site-based organizations, and other school personnel, psychologists, nurses, facilities. So this is really the only thing that is changing in our plan this year from what we had last year and board approved. We are adding pieces of an operational plan that we had to write last year in response to the COVID pandemic. So there's protocols in place now if we were ever to have to go through that again as far as denoting who's essential, who's non-essential, staggering work schedules, passing out PPE to the people who needed it, like the custodians. So now we have protocols in place that are mentioned in the district plan for dealing with a health emergency, which we never had before when we first wrote the district-wide plan. The social worker used to just push into the elementary school as needed. This year, Kayla Muglia is in all 3 buildings, and she's pushing in according to a schedule. And she's working on a curriculum for K through 6 called Everyone Has Mental Health. I actually witnessed her doing a presentation to 5th graders, and it was really helpful to see these kids knew her from previous years in the elementary school. And the curriculum she was teaching was really good for them to know. And lastly, the high school removed Challenge Day, and they're part of the district plan, and instead they now embed safety issues in the curriculum, mental health in the health and PE curriculum. So those are the only changes that are made to the plan from last year to this year. And that's it. So the full plan is on the website. It's been up there since August. So I think tonight, if you have any questions, if not, it's going to be approved, and then we submit it to the State Ed Department. Thank you. Yeah.
I see that challenge day was removed from the plan. Does that mean, and I know that that activity was curtailed the past couple of years because of the pandemic, does that mean challenge day will not happen, or it's just not part of the emergency response safety plan?
Yeah, I really, Mr. Pramataris would know better the answer to that, unless you know Mr. Brasdale, but
It's been added, yeah.
it's
It's been talked about.
it's been talked about, but it's not part of our safety plan per se. Because in the safety plan, we list different program initiatives that each building has, and that was listed as a high school initiative, but we removed that. So it could still possibly be done.
Right, it's just not called out in the safety plan?
Yes.
Okay, thank you.
Thank you, Elizabeth.
Jill, would you join us, please? Proceed with Jill Sanders on the Danowski for the external auditor's report. Julia, right up here.
Good evening to the Board of Education. Thank you for inviting me to your meeting to present the financial statement results. I am the external auditor for the school district, and every year the State Education Department mandates that the school district have an external audit performed. And what we look at is we look at financial statement presentation and acceptance as far as practices with generally accepted accounting principles to make sure that the financial statements are fairly stated. We completed our audit on September 22nd, 2021, and our opinions are now by opinion unit. There's been a change in the report that's been issued. Each opinion unit is a fund. There's a general fund, a special aid fund, a food service fund, capital project fund, and when the Board of Education had the chance to look at the draft financial statement, you would have noted that there's an extra classroom activity fund and a scholarship fund. These are new. This is as a result of implementation of GASB 84, where certain fiduciary funds are now reported as governmental funds in the financial statement. In conjunction with GASB 84, we restated opening balances, and you would have noted when you looked at the financial statement disclosures on page 53, that we had opening balance restatements to bring in the extra classroom activity fund balances, the scholarship balances, and those in trust and agency. Excuse me. In addition, there's a new statement, a statement of fiduciary net position, and a change in the fiduciary net position. To the extent that the library is if the school district is the collector of property taxes on behalf of the library, they have a custodial position, and that's required to be presented under GASB 84. With respect to the financial statements, there was a budget revision because of the COVID expenditures, so there were approximately $2 million of expenditures that the school district had to deal with, and the Board of Education did pass a budget revision. The district is scheduled to receive, for the 3 rounds of CARES Act funding, they've already received the first round, they've been approved, and have started to receive some of the funding for the second round, and then the third round, or they will receive funding for, in a total amount of about $2.2 million. So it's almost what you had approved as far as a budget revision. Unfortunately, the timing is such that the funding probably will not be received in its entirety until the end of September of 2023. The district is at 4% fund balance, unassigned fund balance, so the state education department and real property tax law says that the district should have no more than 4% of next year's budget. And even though that seems a little bit low, that is what the compliance is for the state, for the school district, and so the school district is compliant with respect to that. Part of what we look at as the audit is the internal control structure. So those are the checks and balances over the financial transactions. And the school district has a really good set of checks and balances in place. So these are the controls over the various financial transactions, purchasing, cash receipts, cash disbursements, any kind of cash receipts and billing. And as a result, we have not had to issue a communication to the Board of Education under which there's any significant deficiencies or material weaknesses reported. We had issued in the previous year some best practices comments with regard to the internal control structure. And the school district did go ahead and implement additional procedures. I want to thank Linda Jensen for that. So with respect to any previous year's management letter comments, those have been cleared, and there are no management letter comments for this year. So overall, there's a good internal control structure in place, good checks and balances, and the financial condition of the school district is good.
Thank you, Joe.
Approval of minutes. Resolved upon the recommendation of the superintendent, the Board of Education hereby accepts the minutes of the September 21st, 2021 regular meeting as submitted.
I second that.
Second. Thank you. Any comments? All in favor? Aye.
Aye.
Any questions on the agenda itself? Personnel, A, resignations. Pete, would you mind handling the resignations, 1, 2, and 3?
Resignations. School District A, Danielle Lino, resolved upon the recommendation of the superintendent and Board of Education hereby accepts the resignation of Danielle Lino, School District A, effective October 7, 2021.
I have a second.
I'll second that.
Any comments? All in favor, indicate aye.
Aye.
2, Pete.
Number 2, School District A, Elsie Lindquist, resolved upon the recommendation of the superintendent and Board of Education hereby accepts the resignation for retirement purposes of Elsie Lindquist, School District A, effective December 21st, 2021.
I have a second.
I'll second that.
Good. Any comments? All those in favor, indicate aye.
Aye.
3, School District A.
Number 3, School District A, Sabrina Sinetti, resolved upon the recommendation of the superintendent and Board of Education hereby accepts the resignation of Sabrina Sinetti, School District A, effective September 30, 2021.
B, Lisa, Office Assistant.
Number 1, Office Assistant. Resolved upon recommendation of the superintendent, the Board of Education hereby approves the following appointment. Jennifer Pignatello, start date October 4th, 2021, position Office Assistant, compensation step 2.
Thank you, Lisa. May I have a second?
I'll second that.
Thank you, Ed. Any comments? All in favor, indicate aye.
Aye.
Do you mind doing 2, Lisa?
Sure. Office Assistant, part-time. Resolved upon the recommendation of the superintendent, the Board of Education hereby approves the following appointment. Christine Bettencourt, start date October 20th, 2021, position Office Assistant, .6 position, compensation step 4.
I second.
Thank you, Pete. All in favor?
Aye.
Aye. Anne Marie, number 3 and 4, please.
School District aides, resolved upon the recommendation of the superintendent, the Board of Education hereby approves the following appointments. Judy Coogan, October 4th, 2021 start date, position school district aide, compensation step 1. And Patricia Genovese, start date October 12th, 2021, position school district aide, compensation step 1.
Thank you, Anne Marie. May I have a second?
Second.
Lisa, any comments? All in favor, indicate aye. And number 4.
Non-instructional substitutes, resolved upon the recommendation of the superintendent, the Board of Education hereby approves the following appointments. Daniel Schenk, October 14th, 2021 start date, position as substitute custodian, compensation $15.50 an hour. Jacqueline Nees, October 4th, 2021 start date, substitute aide, compensation $14 an hour. And Kathleen Gilman, start date October 20th, 2021, substitute aide, $14 an hour.
Thank you, Anne Marie. May I have a second?
I'll second that.
Go ahead. Any comments? All in favor, indicate aye. Appointments, Paul?
Coaches and clubs. 1, winter coaches. Resolved upon the recommendation of the superintendent, the Board of Education hereby approves the following coaching appointments for the 2021-22 school year. These coaching appointments are based on anticipated full season schedule. They are as listed.
May I have a second?
Second.
Thank you. Any comments? All in favor? Number 2, Paul, we complete that.
Clubs and advisors. Resolved upon the recommendation of the superintendent, the Board of Education hereby authorizes the following co-curricular clubs and appointments. The persons listed below as advisors for the 2021-22 school year.
May I have a second?
I'll second that.
Thank you, Ed. Any comments? All in favor, indicate by aye. Karen, action items, please.
Again, special education, resolved upon the recommendation of the superintendent, the Board of Education has no objections to the following special education recommendations and approves the authorization for the funds to implement special education programs and services consistent with such. Continue the list below.
Thank you. May I have a second?
Second.
Any comments? All in favor, indicate aye. Ed, action items, external audit report.
External audit report. Resolved upon the recommendation of the superintendent, the Board of Education hereby accepts the independent audit report of the general purpose financial statements, including the reports on compliance and internal control and the audit of extra classroom activity fund as submitted by the firm of Cullen and Danowski LLP for the school year July 1st, 2020 through June 30th, 2021.
May I have a second, please?
Second.
Paul? Any comments? All in favor? Pete, obsolete equipment.
Number 2, obsolete equipment. Resolved upon the recommendation of the superintendent, the Board of Education hereby declares the following items as obsolete and further authorizes disposal as listed.
May I have a second?
I'll second that.
Thank you, Ed. Any comments? All in favor, indicate aye. 3, district safety plan. Lisa?
District safety plan. Resolved upon the recommendation of the superintendent, the Board of Education hereby adopts the amended district-wide school safety plan that is posted on the district's website for public review and comment.
May I have a second, please?
I second that.
Thank you. Any comments? Thank you, Liz, for a comprehensive discussion. All in favor, indicate aye. Anne Marie, donation, time clocks.
Donations, time clocks. Resolved upon the recommendation of the superintendent, the Board of Education hereby accepts the donation of 14 used time clocks from the Eastport South Manor School District.
May I have a second?
I'll second.
Thank you. Any comments? All in favor, indicate aye. Karen, donation, soccer bags.
Resolved upon the recommendation of the superintendent, the Board of Education hereby accepts the donation of 25 outside soccer bags valued at $700 from Tom Miller.
May I have a second?
I'll second that.
Any comments?
One comment, thank you to Mr. Dillon for his generous donation to our athletics program.
And I'll second that comment. All in favor?
Aye.
And 6, Paul, memorandum of agreement.
Memorandum of Agreement, Teachers Association, resolved upon the recommendation of the superintendent, the Board of Education hereby approves the memorandum of agreement, EPK, with the Teachers Association dated October 19, 2021.
May I have a second?
Second.
So Lisa, any comments? All in favor, indicate aye.
Aye.
Now moving to the questions. Mr. Pellegrino?
Oh, I have to say it?
You want me to read it? Would you prefer?
I mean, you can just read it and.
All right. Kimberly Pellegrino, good evening. Do you agree with the National School Boards Association letter of the President and the DOJ using the FBI and the Patriot Act to investigate parents who are opposed mandates and CRT and DEI, or do you welcome parental feedback and concerns? We welcome parental feedback and concerns. Last evening, we had 15 parents at the DEI committee working together, and we think, as a school district, that is an excellent way of conducting this process. We would welcome others who want to participate. It was, I understand from Mr. DePrimo, that it was a very good and productive meeting, so I think to answer your question, that's what we're doing, and that's what we should do.
Bob, if I may comment on that, I was invited to participate in committee and I was in attendance last night, and the topics were broad-ranging and the discussion was very civil. I think that there was a lot of good clarification and communication among the 16 parents, actually including myself and Ms. Primo. Mrs. Farrell was also there, among others. And the whole point is to foster community, particularly parental participation and support for the program.
Thank you, Ed. Mr. Forlano asked, should there be signs up around the track and inform residents that the track cannot be used during school hours? Well, we don't have signs up for everything, but as you notice, hey, Mr. Forlano?
Yes,
Please, come on. As you sat through the security program, we've had the campus secure for greater than the COVID time. The COVID, it was closed for a period of time. But for secure reasons, we don't invite guests onto the campus without permission. And we don't have people on the property until after school hours.
Thank you. My name is Philip Perlano. I've been a resident of Mount Sinai for 28 years. I think I moved into the district when this high school was built.
That's probably us, yeah, 28 years.
Yeah, and I'm an avid jogger until about 4 years ago when I had to have 6 heart bypasses on the same day. My surgeon told me that because I've been jogging for 40 years, that's probably what saved my life. So I have a certain fondness for this school district and especially the track. And I can't tell you how many hours I've spent on the track in the 28 years the school's been built. But it's been a hell of a lot of hours, believe me. So 2 weeks ago, it was a Thursday, about 9:30 in the morning, a young man came over to me. He had some kind of a badge on. He really didn't introduce himself. He just asked me if I was a member of the staff of the school district. I said no. At that time, he said, well, you have to leave the track. And I said, why? I said, in the 28 years I've been using the track, this is the very first time somebody told me to leave the track. So I quickly left the track. I went home and I looked up the policy handbook for the school district, and it didn't say anywhere in the handbook that residents couldn't use the track during school time. So then I called Scott Ray, your athletic director, and I asked him if it was school district policy that residents not using the track during school hours. He said it wasn't policy, but it was a rule. I said, is this rule written down anywhere that I could see it? As I looked through the Mount Sinai district handbook of policies, it wasn't there. And he indicated to me it's on all the signs around the district. So, yeah, I know the district very well from having gone, in and out of the district. And there has never been a sign up that stated that district residents could not use the track. And he said, well, there's a sign on the track right now. So I said, there is no sign. There has never been a sign on the track that said district residents couldn't use the track. And my recommendation to the school board this evening is that if this is a policy or a rule, it should be indicated to the residents. I mean, I'm a stickler for following rules. I was a math teacher in Hollow Hill School District for 30 years, and I was a stickler for rules. I always handed out rules the very first day of classes to my students, and I found out that students adhere to those rules a lot more when they're written down than just spoken verbally. So that's my recommendation. Put signs up.
Thank you, sir, for your comments. Mr. Johnson, Skylar Johnson, a graduate of our high school. It's nice to see you. How are your parents?
They're doing very well, thank you.
Very nice to see you. How are you this evening?
Good to see you too. So, like you said, my name is Skylar Johnson. I graduated from this high school. My brother also graduated from this high school. My mother also went through this school as did my aunt, and my grandmother was actually district clerk for a number of years. So my family has been here for a very long time. I just wanted to take a moment to quickly discuss concepts such as DEI and racism in schools because it's something that's very important to me, and I think there's unfortunately been a lot of confusion and false rhetoric over the subject. Let me first start by saying that the phrase that is used, the new buzzword, is critical race theory. Let me say, without any doubt, critical race theory is not being taught in schools. There is no one here that is qualified to teach critical race theory. And the reason I'm saying that with such certainty is because I am currently a senior in college, and no one in that institution is qualified to teach critical race theory. I am taking a class titled Philosophy of Race, and that professor has unequivocally stated that he is not qualified to teach critical race theory. Critical race theory is the intersection of racism and laws. It is not something that is taught in Mount Sinai. It is not something that is taught in any school district. But I do want to talk about the need for diversity in schools and why it's so important. A lot of times opponents of diversity in schools make the argument that if you don't teach racism, people just won't be racist. That's making the argument that racism is something that people are learning from the schools. It's something that we're seeing in our life. It's something that's in our everyday practices still. Let me tell you a personal story about myself. When I was in kindergarten here, I was the only non-white kid in the class. I was probably the only non-white kid in my grade. I, one day, came home from school. It was part-time kindergarten, but I came home from school and I said to my mom, crying, I wish I was white. I was about 5 years old. We weren't, as far as I know, unless there was a really, really weird curriculum back there, my kindergarten teacher was not teaching critical race theory. I was 5 years old and I was already saying that I wish I was a different skin color than I was, for the sole reason that I looked different than everyone else. What actually changed my mind was the fact that my kindergarten teacher, who is no longer a teacher here, she retired a number of years ago, pulled out a picture of her daughter, who was adopted and who was black. And I came home saying, I look just like my teacher's daughter. That's the impact that has. Teaching diversity can change lives. We live in a society right now where they've done studies, and when they have taken black and brown little girls and boys and handed them a doll, one white and one black, the students will identify the black doll as the bad one. That is the society that we live in right now. I'm going to ask something of the board, and this isn't to embarrass you or to try to put you on the spot here, but I want to make a point. How many of you adequately know what the Tulsa race riots are? If you could raise your hand or just indicate it in any way.
Well, Mr. Johnson, we've said this before. This is an opportunity for you to offer a comment.
Yeah.
But we don't take straw polls or local comments.
Okay, that's fine. My point.
Keep in mind, we've asked you people within 2 to 3 minutes.
Sure, I'll finish quickly. My point here is that there are things such as the Tulsa race riot, such as the destruction of Seneca Village, such as the bombing of Philadelphia that are not taught in schools. We are not adequately taught Black history. We are not adequately taught the history of slavery as it is. In fact, or any of these issues. In fact, actually, in my entire time at Mount Sinai, I did not have one non-white educator. It's not just that we're not being taught critical race theory, we're not being taught diversity enough. And I know that there's opponents here, I know that there's opponents across the country right now of that diversity, but I'm going to ask the board to implement more diversity here because it changes and it saves lives. And I'll give you a lot of credit too, because when it comes to a lot of things, LGBTQIA rights, when I was in school, any of my friends who fell into that category, a lot of them felt very welcome. A lot of our trans students felt very affirmed. They were allowed to use the bathrooms that they wanted to and needed to. So I do appreciate the work that you have done there because it is very important. And I hope that you can continue and consider implementing diverse policies into our schools. Thank you.
Thank you, Mr. Skyler. It's nice to see you. Mr. Ryan?
Hi, I'm Samantha Breyer. I'm a resident of Mount Sinai. And I am also here in support of DEI, but from a different perspective. As Skylar mentioned, there's a lot of fear being stoked around DEI, and so it's important to explain what it actually is. The D stands for diversity in all the ways people can be different, not just race, but age, religion, socioeconomic status, gender, ethnicity, political beliefs, and learning styles. E for equity means providing the same opportunities for learning and achieving success to all the different kinds of people. For example, my son is autistic, and he is able to excel academically because of his IEP, his individualized education plan, and the supports that it guarantees to him. He's brilliant, but you wouldn't know it without those supports. Finally, I is for inclusion, and it's just that. Including all these different people and embracing, acknowledging, and accepting them. These principles are the foundation of empathy, compassion, and understanding, and there is no reason that any parent should fear them. Thank you.
Thank you, Mrs. Ryan. We don't have any other submitted questions, so I'll take
Could I make a quick comment?
They didn't put it as a question.
I came in late.
And what is your question, then?
I just wanted to, I think we can all just agree that we want to have every child feel safe, and I'm not scared of my children learning about different cultures. I'm multicultural, multiracial. My family is. So my issue with some of the DEI framework, not from what the school presented, but from what the New York State Board of Regents, some of that does concern me. Because I don't feel like I'm being well represented with some of those issues. But I am on the committee because I want to make sure that I'm aware and I'm there to be helpful. I'm not going there to start trouble.
Thank you for joining the committee. We appreciate that. I have a motion to adjourn to executive session.
So moved.
Second. All in favor?
Aye.
Thank you very much.